funny. Perfect. Zoom keeps changing. So, welcome everyone to the colored pencil message in a bottle drawing. Um, you should have 6 colored pencils, brown, orange, golden yellow, light blue or sky blue, regular blue, and black. Your regular blue should sort of look like a navy blue, in case you were wondering. We're doing this on approximately 7 by 10 paper. I have mixed media paper that is 7 by 10, so it doesn't have to be that perfect size. It could be your 8.5 by 11 printer paper. It can be sketch paper, so you can do it bigger if you want. This is just a smaller drawing. It's going to be about an hour and a half, might be a little less. We shall see. But there's a lot of shading happening in this one. I think it's going to be really fun. And so we are going to get started. So let me just go back to my own screen here. All right, I'm going to go a little bit closer here. And we are going to start with our sketching. You're going to be lightly sketching. And so we're going to start off first with the bottle. I mention always that we start off doing it lightly because we often erase parts in order to fit maybe parts of the background and that sort of thing. Also, if anybody wants to take a quick picture, I haven't done that in a while. So if you want to take a quick picture, I'm going to do a really big close-up here. If you want to. Lots of colors in there. I mean, only 6, but it's going to be fun to shade with these. I am a lover of colored pencil, as a lot of you know. Okay, so we're going to get started here. So our bottle obviously is slanted. If I'm to take my pencil, it actually almost meets both corners, not exactly. Really this one, and it's off to the left at the top right corner. But let's start off at the bottom here. You want to make sure to leave room in the bottom left corner for your sand. We'll have our sand that sort of fades out. All right, so starting here on the left, we're going to start with the bottom of the bottle. And I'm going to be drawing darker. You want to make sure that yours is very light. So by that, what I mean is you basically want to be able to still see your pencil marks, but you want it to be very light. And so this is the bottom of our bottle. And from that, we're just going to make a little bit of some indentation in the sand. Now we can always go back later and do some adjusting, but we just want to kind of give it a base. So it's going to look a little bit strange. So that's the bottom of our bottle. And then we're now going to start with the shape. And so that's going to start over here on the left. And we're going to get rounded, but we're going to go kind of straight up and curve again. So it's kind of bubbly right at the bottom, and then again, sort of at the top, or I should say the side. And then we're also going to come back down on the right side where the sand is and also make that side of the bottle. And then you're going to turn going towards the middle because we're going to then make the neck of the bottle. And so you may have to do some adjusting when you get to the neck so that both sides of the top of your bottle look pretty much the same. So what I like to do is I like to kind of start to make the neck of the bottle like this. And so now I'll go in and slim it down where I have to, curve it when it meets this part of the bottle. I'm going to swing this out a little more. So remember, if it's looking strange to you, what you want to remember is it is curving on either side. So you've got two bumps that are curving, and then you sort of almost go straight, like a straight line. And then you curve again when you're getting towards the bottom. So you want to make sure that you're not doing too much curving as you're going straight, or as you're, trying to do both sides of the bottle. Okay, so we're just going to add a little bit of some part of the bottle here on the left where the neck is. And then we're going to now add the top portion of the bottle here. So it's you're going to be able to see a little bit of the side. And then because it's going around, you're going to curve this part. And you don't really see the other complete side. And so we sort of stop here and go like that. Now I'm gonna go a little bit closer just so you can see. I'm also realizing the bottom part of my bottle on the left side needs to go in a little bit. So I'm going to fix that now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be drawing everything first in pencil. And then we're going to be lightening everything up so that we can then erase it and go over it with colored pencil. All right, so now we're going to make the cork. And so we have a bit of the cork showing here at the top of the bottle. And it's sort of almost like the bottom of a square, but then we do see a bit of the round cork here. So I'm making this darker so that you are able to see it. You want that to be light, and obviously we'll make it super light once we erase everything. I'm just darkening up my lines so that you are able to see what's happening there. I'm also going to go a little bit closer. And I'm going to try some light. I think that's good. Okay. All right. Now we're going to draw the rest of our cork. So obviously the cork is here, and the sides of the cork kind of go out this way, like a little bit slanted. They're not completely straight. And then we have the top part. Now we're going to, go back and make the cork, the top of the cork, kind of a little bit ragged later on. But we're not going to do that yet. So we've got our basic bottle so far. And now we're going to draw our rolled up piece of paper inside. And so we're going to start off with a cylinder, or sort of, I should say, not really a cylinder, almost like a paper towel roll. So we're going to start up here. And this is where you want to make sure that you go light, because we're going to be doing some erasing. So we're going to go all the way down till about right here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to do what's going to look, again, sort of like a cylinder that is a little bit bent in the middle. And at the top part, it expands a bit. And then we're going to come over here. And I'll give you time to, fix this. It's going to kind of look a bit like this. And then we're going to start adding pieces to it. So our first, or I should say our second piece, is going to be the top part, right? The top part of the paper that's crumpled and kind of inside it. So it's going to look a bit like, I feel like this looks like a part of a fortune cookie. So we're going to go around, and then you're going to make sure that it is sitting inside, because it's wrapped around, wrapped inside the outer part of the paper. Okay. So now what we're going to do, this is the longer part. So right here. And so now we're going to manipulate this line so that it looks like it's jagged and it's a little bit torn. So I'm going to do a light erasing on the bottom there. And then I'm going to start to make it a little crumpled like this. And I'm going to make it look three-dimensional by adding this side here. Michael. I love it. I think it would be kind of fun to do a Chinese cookie. I don't know. And maybe, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe for the fall. I just thought of that. So now that we have this part, we're going to go inside and we're going to make a smaller portion. So this part here that's rolled up, right? So now we make a smaller portion. And again, this is the top part of the paper, and it's going to come right kind of towards the edge here. And we're going to make it look three-dimensional by going like this. I'm going to make my to make my about the bottom portion of my bottle a little bit straighter. I made it a little bit too curved. So there we go. Okay. And then we're going to make one more layer over here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come up here and we're going to make, again, a jagged edge on top. And then what we want to do is I like to go back and make this part just a little bit thicker. Note that right in this section here, there is a tiny portion of the paper that you can see underneath. Let me erase this and show you a little closer here. So I'm talking about this little part here. That's flipped over, just like this part is flipped over. I'm gonna go really close. There we go. Okay, so now I like to expand mine a little bit. So over here, we're going to make this part also just a little bit thicker as it goes up. And I like it to kind of curl just a little bit. I'm just kind of fixing my lines here. So what I'm doing is I'm going back and just making little pieces of it look like it's either dented a little bit. I'm going to make this a little bit thicker. To make it look like crumpled paper. And then we're finally going to add the tie around it, which is going to start up here, kind of a little more than halfway up the paper. And so we're just going to make what's going to look like a curved line going across. And so we're going to be erasing once again. We make that curved line. That's the bottom portion of the string. And then toward the left, because that piece of string is slightly raised up, we're going to come to the left side here and make a little bit of a sort of a line like this that goes back around. And then it's going to go around again on the other side. So those parts are important to make it look like it is wrapping around your piece of papyrus or, oh, nice, John Paul. Very nice. And then we're going to do something similar with the ones up top, but those are thinner. So here we go with one. So we're going to make kind of it sticking out a little bit. And I'm going to go really close. We're going to stick out, wrap around again. Then you're going to make it three-dimensional. This one's a lot thinner. And we've got one more as well. I'm going to make this just a little bit longer here. And then we've got our other one. So as you can see, I first do lines, and then I make it look three-dimensional. And this one is sort of loose a little bit. So it's kind of trailing inside the bottle. I'm just fixing this top part. And we have our message in a bottle. And then we're going to make our shell. And so that's about right here. And so what I like to do is kind of create the space for it first by creating an elongated rectangle so that we can sort of see about how long it's going to be. And it starts right here. You can kind of see it a bit in the bottle or through the bottle, I guess. And then we're going to make it kind of pointy at the end. So you're probably thinking, why are we making that strange shape? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to make a shape in between, or sort of flesh out, as they say, kind of a shape. Kimberly's coming on. Welcome, Kimberly. We started, it's about a half hour ago, but we're recording and it's so nice to have you on. I just recopied the information in the chat and we're just at the drawing portion. So if you're able to keep up, we'd love to have you hang out. And you'll receive the recording at some point after I send it off to Karen sometime maybe this week. I mean, I'll send it tonight to Karen. So with the shell, we're going to make this part over here stick out. So we're going to make what's going to look like, well, it's a cylinder. And so it's going to look like this. So it's going to be basically two long sides and a circle. But we're going to make it a little bit shorter because of the angle. So it's sort of coming out of the middle, and then around that, we're going to make sort of round cylinders like this in the shape that we created here. But we're going to keep going down and making these cylinders, but we want them to not touch completely as we're going around. And we're following the shape that we created, but adding cylinders around it. Now you can start to make those lines touch as you're going down toward the end of your shell. You're also going to make sure that your parts of the shell are getting smaller as it's going towards the end. And so it's going to look a bit like this. My husband said it looked like a very long croissant. And now I can't unsee it. But oh well, it's my shell. But the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to draw the bottle through that portion of the shell. And we're going to be lightening that up shortly. But first, we're just going to draw a few more lines to now indicate when we go back in order to make the, it look like sand. So we're going to come over here toward this part of the bottle, right? So our bottle is sort of like this, and it's indenting in the sand. So we're going to have a very light line here. So these indentations should be very light. You should be drawing these very light. Here's another one. So we've got this one and this one. When we go back to shade, I'll be telling you where to shade darker and where to shade lighter so that it looks like the bottle is positioned in the sand. And then right underneath the shell, we're also going to sort of make just a few lines coming from it. And this should already now make it look like you have a bit of a background happening here. And then we're going to make sort of a little bit of a mound in the sand here by just making a light line here. You see what that light line does? It's pretty cool, right? All of a sudden now, it looks like this is a bit of a mound of sand. And then we're going to come over here and sort of make a shape like this. Again, all of this should be very light. And then we're going to finally make a very, one more line from here. We started off with creating this line at the bottom, and we're just going to make it a little bit more of a crinkle here, like so. And then we'll make one more line here. Kind of just a very curvy line. And our last one with the sand. So we're going to go a little bit through our bottle here, right underneath. And we're just going to create a line coming from here. And then one right here, very light, just so that that's a bit of the background. And guess what? Now we get to lighten everything up, and we're going to then add our colors. So now you're just going to take an eraser and you're just going to lighten up all of your lines. The reason we're doing this is because we're now going to go back and we're going to start adding our actual colors. So you're going to see that mine is disappearing a bit. Should be very light. And let me just make sure you can see the other bottle. Okay. And the first color that we're going to start with is our blue. So we're going to start with our regular blue. And so what we're going to do, while we're going over our lines, you'll have the opportunity to then erase again the pencil underneath. Okay. So we're going to start off with the bottle. We're going to start off on the left side here, and we're going to just outline the outside of the bottle. This is with blue for now. We're going to go all the way up to the neck of the bottle. We're also going to include the top portion of the bottle, so not the cork, but this part here. So again, going around, and we're going to be adding some lines, but first we're just outlining the top portion of the bottle. So what we've done so far is we have outlined this side, gone up the left side, and also outlined the top portion of the bottle. And now we're going to go around this side and outline. You're going to remember to go over your shell there. And you're going to stop at the sand. And then you're going to erase your pencil away. All right, everybody doing good so far? Okay. Nice. Thanks, John Paul. Nice. Okay. We're going to go here at the bottom part of our bottle. Oh, yeah, John Paul, that looks awesome. Nice. Yay. Thanks, Michael. Nice. I know when I teach kids online, I'm always saying, give me a double thumbs up. Or if they're not good, you know, go like this. And I actually do have kids that go like this. Like if they're not ready, they're like, no. It's pretty funny. Okay, so now we're going to go to the bottom and we're going to outline the first line here of the bottom of the bottle. So we're going to, that first kind of curved line that we created, you're going to outline that. And we're going to be making a smaller one. With your blue. And it's going to sort of mimic the first one, but kind of close to the outside line. And then we're going to add some very light blue lines like so. Like that. All right, we're going to keep going with the blue. We're going to start adding some other lines. So coming here toward the bottom, we're going to add a curved line like this. And we're going to go up the side just a little bit, adding some lines like this. And then we're going to go up to the neck part. And right in line with this part of the cork, we're going to make light line and curve it.
Ooh, it's looking good.
I don't know. I'm not believing. Not believing.
Sweet.
And then we're going to make another line here. Like that. And we're going to switch to the right side. And we're going to make a little bit of a curved line here. Then we're going to make another one. Curving away from the outer portion of the bottle till about right here. And we're sticking on this side because then we're going to come down here. We're going to make another one like this. So we have this curve here and here. So these are rather light for right now. And then we're going to go up into this portion and we're going to add curved line here, but it's not going to join up. It's going to separate. And the next line will be like this. So we are making now the inside of the bottle part with these lines. So here we go up here. We're going to go all the way like that. And we're going to put our blue down for a little bit. So we're going to put that off to the side. And we are going to grab our brown. So we're going to make the sand. So we're going to ease up on the bottle for now. And before we keep going, we're going to now make the sand. So we're going to start off very light with our lines at first. So what we want to do is we want to copy over the lines of our pencil with the brown. So we're going to come here at the bottom of our bottle and we're going to copy over this one, this one, this one, but we're not going to go real dark on this line here. Basically, your darker lines are going to be right underneath the bottle. And then your line should get a little lighter. See that? See how it's darker? And then it kind of fades out. A little bit darker, fades out. We're going to come up here and make that line light brown. That was pencil before. So we're covering it in our light brown or our brown, but we're making it light right here. And same here. But we're now going to go toward the bottle with our line. See what I did? I extended that line into the bottle. That's right here. And we're going to now take a second and we are going to outline our rolled up piece of paper. And so with this, we're going to make sure also that our lines are lightened up using an eraser. And we're first going to lightly trace all of the lines on the left side of the paper. So I'll say that again. What we're doing is we are lightly tracing all of the lines on the left side of the paper. And then we're going to go across and do the rest. Now, we're going to make the lines across jagged as if they are weathered. So you can kind of go up and down. I'm going to do that here. Now let's not forget our, our ties here. Here's the first one. And again, you're going light on everything, and then we're going to go back and make things a little bit darker. So here's a tie here. So again, what we're doing is we're just tracing over everything in brown that has to do with our folded up message. And then when you're ready, you can erase away if there's any pencil. Just very lightly go over it. And now we're going to be going back and making parts darker. And then we're going to shade it too. Okay, so the parts that we want darker is right here at the bottom, this part here. And you're going to go across, and you see how my line just got darker? So you're going to make that darker. Basically, when there is an edge that is on top of something, it creates a shadow and it's a little darker. So for instance, this folded up piece is on top of this piece. And so this bottom part would be darker. See what that does already? It makes it look like it's lifted up. We're going to come here on the left side here, and we're going to make this little line darker. And you can go a little bit across with it right here. And see what that did too? It now looks like it's lifted up. can do this a little darker too. We're going to do the same to the ones on the left here, the ties. Right there. Make that a little bit darker. And then we're going to go up at the top. Right? It's folded over, and we're going to make parts of it a little darker. So we'll skip a little bit, and then we'll make it darker. See what I did there? See, I skipped, and then I made it a little darker. I'm going to go in really close because we're going to start shading. We're also going to go a little darker right here in between. And then finally, a little bit darker right over here. And it trails off a little into the bottle. And now we're going to start shading. So we're going to shade our piece of paper. But we're going to start inside, and we're going to start here on the left in this corner, and we're going to shade lightly like that.
Is that black or brown?
Oh, this is brown. Yep, we're still using brown. And then we're going to shade lightly in this part. So it's lightly because we're then going to go on top with yellow. But we're doing our darks first. We're also going to shade in this section. And then basically, because it's crumpled and it is still a cylinder, you know, think like a paper towel or a toilet paper roll. Your darker parts would be on the sides. So you're going to very lightly shade underneath the ties on the left side. So again, what I just did was I shaded on the left side underneath, you know, these ties. And you're going to do the same on the right side, but we're going to go in a little bit here. We're also going to shade the top portion, this part here, a little bit on the left where that corner is kind of sticking up, this corner of the paper. And we're going to add a little bit of a shadow right up against the edge of it too. And then we'll come around on this edge and shade a little bit. And then we're going to come on top of the ties, And first we're going to make this bottom part of the tie darker all the way across. So again, we're coming up and doing this part of the tie darker all the way across. And we're going to do the same to the one underneath. And then you're going to lightly shade inside the ties. Ooh, nice, John Paul. Very nice. Now we're going to shade this part of the tie, but just this part very lightly. And you can make underneath a little darker too. So again, this part of the tie, you're going to shade up against it and then make the bottom line darker. And that's going to really make it look like it's lifted up on your piece of paper. And then we're going to add some sort of shading that's going to go like this. First, I'm going to make this just a little bit darker here. And then we're going to add some really light lines of shading. And then we're going to come up to the cork. So we're going to leave that alone for now. We're going to come up to the cork. And remember when I said we're going to go to the top and we're going to make it more jagged. So we're going to copy over the pencil with our brown on the left side here. And then when we come around, we're going to make a jagged line like that. And then you can erase any pencil that's underneath. We're also going to go to the right side and make a line as well. I like to make it a little bit jagged. And then we're going to go inside, right? And remember this portion of the cork, we're going to outline that. But the round part, we're just going to make really light because then we're going to shade like this inside the cork part. See how I left a little portion of it unshaded? And we're going to come up top and we're going to make little lines to indicate the texture of the cork. So you want to have some lines coming at the top, kind of some on this, maybe one on the side. I did one on the side, lines like this, like dashed lines. And then we're going to shade lightly on
What?
top of all of it. But then we're going to make a darker portion that's shaded here. So we're going to make a curve and we're going to shade that darker, slightly darker. We're eventually going to go back in with some black. And we're going to also make that side of the cork where the round part is in the bottle a little bit darker too. And then guess what? Because the cork, you can see it through the bottle. We're going to add some brown, light brown on this portion of the bottle. Now we're going to go inside the bottle because now we're going to do the sand. So I know I mentioned it before, but we're really going to do it now. So we're going to start over here on the left and make a curved line using our brown like this. Ooh, nice, John Paul. Very nice. I love your shading. Thanks. So we're making another line here. It went through the bottle and behind here. And now we're going to shade, but before that, we do want to make one more line here brown. And now we're going to shade very lightly using our brown. So we're shading all of this. And you see I'm kind of, the way I'm shading is I'm shading on the side. Just doing a very light shading of brown. For now, we'll go back and we'll adjust. So very light shading of brown, everything. Not our shell yet. But underneath the shell, now just everything very light. And we're going to fade that out a little bit. And the way you fade it out is you just go really light shading. And I like to make a little bit of a border with my shading with this one. So when I get to about right here, kind of start to make some bumpy, almost like a bumpy line, and then I shade within that line. So everything is brown for right now. And then we're going to put our brown down for a minute, and we're going to finally pick up our golden yellow. Ooh, nice, John Paul. I know, I can't wait to see these. I think these are going to look fantastic. So we're going to pick up our golden yellow. And what we're going to do with our golden yellow is going to be pretty quick. So our golden yellow is just a hint of yellow. So you're going to be kind of going like this. So we're going to first start off in our cork. And you're just going to very lightly shade over the brown. So you get a hint of the yellow. And now we're going to go in our paper. We're going to press a little harder in this section with the yellow. I wanted to see if the difference in light would let you see the yellow more. I think that does. Yeah. And now we're going to go all over this part.
Ooh, looks beautiful.
Are there any more of those available?
I asked you for one to make two.
I'm just looking for a
There's
small
four
one.
left.
And we're going to go a little bit darker with our yellow on the sides here. So right where we added our brown shading on either side, we're going to add a little bit more of our yellow, a little bit, you know, pressing with the yellow. And then we're going to go into our sand. And so we're going to start here on the left. So here again, we're going to lightly color over the brown into the bottle. For now, it's light. We're coloring all into our sand. So that includes this portion of the bottle. Color around your shell. And we're just sticking onto the sand and inside the bottle. So now it should look like you have a bit of a background. And then we're going to pick up our brown once more. And we're going to go darker in certain spots. So we're going to start off again on the sand here on the left, and we're going to shade darker right in this section over here.
This is brown, right?
Yep, you got it, John Paul. This is brown. Yep, we're still using brown. So we're going to go right in this section here and right underneath our bottle here in this section. Basically, we're going to be doing the bottom portion near the bottom of the bottle. So we're making shading on the sand. And we're going to extend this shading a little bit here to make like a mound. And then, remember how we drew this little part? We're also going to make a shadow there. And then we want our bottle to look like it's, you know, sitting in the sand. And so the way we do that is right over here. We're going to make it darker. We're going to make a line in the sand, literally like that. And then we're going to shade. And we're going to also start now to outline a little bit of our shell. So you can see me now taking the brown and kind of outlining the shape of the shell on the bottom. Now again, we want our shell to also look like it's laying in the sand. So there are going to be some lines coming from underneath the shell, some kind of shaded lines, and they're kind of curvy. You know, because sand, when you put something on it, you know, it's like almost like an anthill, right? Because it's, you know, it kind of makes an indentation, but then it makes a hill. And so now we then want to shade a little darker right underneath our shell. So you can go right across using your brown pencil and shade a little darker underneath your shell. And then you're going to start to do the same right underneath the bottle. And you're going to start to make it look like that there are indents in the sand by then shading a little lighter from each of those lines we created. Those are literally like lines in the sand. Here's another one, right? Because our bottle is sitting in the sand here. And basically we're going to make it a little bit darker shading here where the bottle is sitting in the sand too, right in this section. Right at the tip of where the bottle is meeting the sand. And then we're going to go a little bit shaded darker here, right at the bottom of the bottle. And then we're going to go inside. And we're going to shade with the brown a little darker here on the left and inside the bottom of the bottle. we're going to shade a little part of the bottle here darker. And then we're going to take it and shade kind of like a line around the bottom of the bottle using the brown. And now we're going to shade this portion inside the bottle using the brown. So we're going to go start off light here in the bottom corner. And as we go upward towards our paper, we're going to shade darker, just a little bit. And then shade a little bit darker in this section of the sand that's you can see through the bottle. And then we're finally going to go underneath the bottle. And we're going to shade a little bit darker, but we also go through the bottle a little bit, right where the edge is there. And we're also at the same time going to start to outline the rest of the shape of our shell using the brown. So again, you're going to then start to outline the shape of your shell using the brown. And then you're going to go inside the shapes of the shell and you're going to make lines like this to make it look roundish. Ooh, yes, Marcia.
Do you color it for the shell for underneath the bottle?
That's oh, this part here or this shading here on the bottom?
About the bottle, right to the shell.
Oh, here.
The shell.
Oh, this part.
Yeah.
Yep. You're going to do a little bit of shading. Yep, you got
Right,
it.
right.
Yep, you're going to do a little bit of shading and you're going to really quickly shade on top of the shell brown. Really light though. Like really light. And then this part, you shade a little bit darker brown in the rounded cylinder part right there. And you're going to put your brown aside for a little bit and you're going to grab your orange. Now the orange, we're also going to add on the sand. But again, it's going to be very light. Starting here on the left. Very light. I like to add it mostly with the brown. Especially in the darker areas of the shading. And we're also going to very lightly shade our shell. But when we get to the bottom, we go darker with the orange in each section on the bottom. And you can add a little bit of orange strokes on the top of each section as well, using your orange. Okay, and then we're going to pick up our yellow one more time. We're going to add a little bit of darkness with our yellow. We're going to start at the bottom of our sand where our bottle is, and we're just going to kind of scribble and go a little darker in the parts that have the brown, the darker parts of the brown. So you're kind of scribbling a little darker on those parts. And you can add a little more of the yellow if you like in the rest of it to make it just a little more yellow if you want. Finally, time for our light blue. So we're going to start at the bottom, this part of our bottle. And we're going to, remember those lines we created? We're going to now make them darker with our light blue or sky blue. We're also going to shade that entire section lightly with our blue. So it will now have a blue tinge to the bottom of your bottle. We're even going to go in our sand here and scribble some blue on top of the sand. Just a little bit. So it'll look a little bit greenish. We're going to add some of that blue right here, right up against the bottle on the sand. And more importantly, we're now going to go into the darker parts of the sand, and we're going to kind of outline right up against it using the blue. Now we're going to go into the bottle. And first, we're going to go right up against where we created the outline of the bottle. And we're going to shade in a straight line up against that line, kind of tracing it upward as we go toward the top part of the neck of the bottle. So we're going to start off on the left side, and we're going to be making some very light strokes of shading using this blue. We're going to come up into the cork, and we're going to shade blue on this side and right through on top of the bottle. Then underneath the bottle, we're going to shade a little bit darker and kind of outline using this blue. We're also now going to create, right over here, we're going to create some shading. We're going to make kind of a line like this and a curve so that we kind of shade to make it look like the glass of the bottle is curving. We're going to come across here where this line is, and we're going to shade a little bit there. We're also going to shade on top of this line, but we're going to extend it a little bit, that shading. We're going to go down to the rest of the bottle. We're going to follow those curves we made, those curved lines, and make them darker. We're also going to outline the bottom, or I should say the side of the paper here, all along here with our blue. We're going to go to this glass part, and we're going to shade inside a little bit darker in the curve. So we're kind of like shading and outlining inside the bottle. Now we're going to start the strokes of shading. And so, for instance, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coming over here, and we're going to very lightly add strokes of shading like this. So let's start doing that. And then our last parts will be adding the dark blue, a little bit of dark blue, and a little bit of black. So excuse me while I adjust Okay, so now we're going to take this blue and we're going to start here where we started with the curve. And we're going to start to add light lines. And then when you add, or it's kind of a darkish light line, it's not a real deep line, but it's darker than the shading. And then you shade around it. So almost like in drips, because these are the parts of the bottle that are being reflected. With the glass. And then we're going to shade a bit in this corner, a little darker. And you're going to start shading on top of your paper as well. So you're going to start creating strokes of blue. On your paper, right? Our message. So you make a line. And when you get to the top of where between, the cork is and the rest of the bottle, you can also make some parts of shading like that. But when you get to the bottom right side, you start to shade blue over a lot of the bottle on that side. And then we're going to grab our black and we're going to outline our bottle in black. So right on top of the blue, I'm going to very carefully outline the whole bottle, including, the top part. We're going to add some darkness to the brown in the cork. But first, outline the bottle. And even the bottom portion of the bottle, you want to make sure to outline those lines and the curves at the bottom. And even the sand that's going right up against the bottle. We're going to take our black and quickly shade inside the left side of the cork, just a little bit. Ooh, John Paul, that looks amazing. Wow. We're going to add some little parts to the bottle that are black, especially underneath where the top part fits on the bottle. We're also going to add some black shading at the bottom of the bottle on the left side. We're going to make a line that is not connected, and we're going to add 2 parts of some shading with the black. So this part here, and then one right above where it's curving at the bottom. And then you're finally going to also take your blue, your regular blue, and you're just going to make some of those lines a little darker using your blue. Mainly this one here, just adding some blue shading to this side. We're going to add a little bit on top of this shaded part here at the top part of the bottle where the neck is. And then we're finally just going to finish off here on the right with making some shaded curved spots that kind of go right along this line we created. And you can add some more dark spots of blue here up at the top if you like. But that's our colored pencil message in a bottle, and I'm so excited to see what these look like. So I'm going to stop the recording.